Hi everyone and welcome to another art journal layout. This week I have a fun event featuring Tim Holtz products and there are tons of giveaways on my blog, so make sure to join. For my layout today I'll be using these crazy birds. I think they're just adorable. The moment I saw them I just wanted to make an art journal layout using them. So I'm starting out on my moleskin journal and as usual I'm using tissue paper. This comes in a roll and it's by Tim Holtz. So just because I'll be having the birds as the focal point, I'm going to use only the notes from that tissue paper. So I have cut down some strips and I'm going to stick them down here and there. For as a glue I'm using gel medium by Ranger. And since this week I'll be featuring Tim Holtz products, I have 2 more videos for you and they will go live on Tuesday and Thursday, so make sure to join them. And Tim Holtz was generous enough to send me tons of prizes for you, so I'm going to draw at the end of this week 5 winners. The prizes are all amazing, so make sure to go to my blog to check them out as well as enter your name to the giveaway. Now that the gel medium is dry, I'm going all over the page by using my gesso. This gesso is a thick gesso by Ranger, but I make sure to dip my brush now and then in water, so that makes it thinner and it's easier to apply. The idea is not to cover up the tissue paper, but push it more in the background. To color the background, I'm using distress paints. These are by Tim Holtz and I just love them. They are great for coloring your backgrounds. I'm using peacock feathers, which is one of my all-time favorite colors, and I'm also introducing the new color that I just got, which is called cracked pistachio. I think it's an awesome combination. I am not using the dabber to apply the ink, but rather I'm using a baby wipe. My baby wipe isn't very wet. I make sure that they are a bit dry, and as you can see I apply a thin layer so it doesn't cover up the background. You can of course go ahead and use the bottle directly with the dabber on your page, and that will ensure that you get more paint and thicker and opaque. It depends on the look you want to have. I first applied a thin layer of color and then I can go back and add more if I need to. What I love about distress paint is that although it reacts with water, it dries completely permanent, so no matter what technique I'll do on top, the color on my background will not move and will not create a mud. At this point I'm happy with my background, so it's time to speed up the drying process with my heat gun. You can always leave it to air dry, but I'm always impatient as I want to move on to the next step to my background. So now let's have some fun. I'm going to be using a new stencil by Tim Holtz. This is from his latest release and it's called Wildflower. So I'm going to apply some embossing paste, which is also by Ranger. I'm applying the embossing paste with a spatula and a little goes a long way in this case. So I'll go over and apply it all over the bottom edge and create some texture. As you can see, nothing goes to waste here. I'm just scraping off the excess and put it back to my jar. Using stencils and apply embossing paste all over is one of my favorite techniques. I just love the texture that it adds in my projects, and the good thing about this embossing paste by Ranger is that it takes color wonderfully, and you'll see me how I'm going to color all those flowers later on. So you can see a close-up of the texture here. I just love it. Great texture for art journal pages. And now let's have some fun with those birds. I think those birds are hilarious, and I'm go ahead and stamp them using archival ink. I'm stamping them on craft tags, but that really doesn't matter. You can use any cardstock that you have. I just want to have them stamped on a nice and sturdy cardstock that takes distressing beautifully. I've chosen 4 random birds from the whole collection. This crazy bird stamp set is my favorite from the whole new release, and whenever I see them they just put a smile on my face. So there are tons of different ways to color them. You can take your time and use Copics or watercolor them or whatever, but today I'll go for a faster technique, so I'll be using my distress inks and I'm going to show you how you can color them in just seconds. But first of all, I want to make sure that I won't go over the eyes. So I'm using a new product that I have in my stash, which is called Mist Kit, and it actually is a liquid mask. So I'm just going to apply it over the eyes to cover them up. This will dry into a rubber-like texture, and you can then go ahead and do any technique you want, while those eyes are not going to be covered with color. Once you finish off coloring, you can just rub it off with your fingers. So while this is drying on the eyes, I'll go ahead and use this bubble dye, and I'm going to cut it out 4 times, 1 for each bird. The idea is to have those birds say something as if it's a comic. As cardstock, I'm using those craft tags by Ranger to cut out those speech bubbles, since they were just on my table. At this point I can feel that those eyes are dry. Now you should know that it does stay a bit sticky. So I'm going to use my scissors and go all around the birds to cut them out. I'm not going to pay any attention on those legs, obviously. I'm not going to cut them out, but you'll see how I'm going to add all those details later on my project. To color all the birds, I'll be using a technique which is super quick and with great results, so I'm using distress ink and I'm going to be using my finger dabbers. I'm applying the first color from the top of the bird towards the center and the second color from his belly towards the center, and you'll see that where the 2 colors meet, they just blend together. Distress ink does the hard work for you, the 2 colors just blend together beautifully. And my bird is colored in just minutes. At this point, I'm rubbing off the mask from the bird's eyes. While coloring all the birds, I'm keeping the lids of each distress ink pad on screen so you can see which color combination I'm using. So I'll go on to the second bird. First of all, I'm using Salty Ocean at the top. And then I'll move on and add some spiced marmalade at his belly. And you can see how those 2 colors blend in the middle. I'll put on some music as I'm coloring those birds, and I'll catch you up once all the birds are colored. And here they are all together on my layout. I think they're just adorable. And I'm going to draw a line to give them a wire up in the sky to stand on. All the supplies I'm using are listed below the video in the description area on YouTube, but also make sure to visit my blog where you will find all the supplies there. And now that I have my wire for all those birds to sit on, I need to add their legs and other details that I have cut out. So I'm using again my archival ink and I'm going to stamp the birds again on the wire. I'm not really particular about the stamping here, I just need the legs and the details that I have cut out. So you'll see me stamping this little guy there, and you'll see that I'm only going to ink up the legs. I'll move on doing the same thing for all the birds. And then I'm going to stick them down using my gel medium. I'm using my white gel pen and adding some highlights here and there all over the birds. Notice how I'm not making any neat lines, I just want them to be sketchy. Also, I'll go over the eyes with my gel pen to make them whiter, and this will make them pop. And since I kept the eyes away from color, now it's so much easier to do. I'm going to color the flowers at the bottom using my distress ink and dabber. Now I can always use my stencil over the flowers to make sure that everything is nice and neat and go all over the green stems, but I decided that I'm too lazy to do that, so I'm going all over the page and adding my green color here and there without being very neat. Embossing paste takes distress ink beautifully and it's so easy to color it. Now once I finish off with the dabber, I can always use a baby wipe and clean the area around the flowers. It's easy to clean off the area around the flowers because the background is colored with distress paints, and that makes the background a non-porous surface, so the distress ink is easily removed with a baby wipe. Now I'll go over the flowers and add some spiced marmalade. And at this stage you can always use your stencil or just do it freehand like I'm doing here. I'll then go back and add a second darker color to the flowers to add a bit of dimension and bring them more to life. At this point I'm going to bring everything together, so just because the birds have a black line all around them, you just can't have the flowers without lines. So I'll go ahead and add a thin black line all around the flowers. It doesn't have to be neat, it can be sketchy. It really didn't took me a lot of time because I'm not trying to be very particular here. And this will help the flowers to pop on my page. So now that the flowers are all done, it's time to add the border. This textured stamp that I'm using today is by Tim Holtz. The stamp set is called Ultimate Grunge and it's full of rubber stamps that are great for texture on your art journals. And I'm going to link to this stamp set on my supplies. As you can see, I'm not being very particular about it. I'm just stamping it all around the edges using my archival ink. This is jet black. I love having borders on my art journal layouts because I think that brings everything together. I'm not finished with the border. I'll go later on and work on it a bit more. So for now I'll be working on those speech bubbles. So as you can see, I'm just stamping my quote there. I'm using again archival ink, and I'm also adding a bit of color on the speech bubble by using my distress inks. I think the colors that I've used were tea dye as well as a vintage photo on the edges. I'm just using my tape adhesive at the back of those speech bubbles as I didn't bother to use gel medium to stick them completely flat on my layout. I kind of like how they pop up and add some texture to the layout. So now that the speech bubbles are in place, I'm going all over the letters and adding some highlights here and there. Adding highlights on the letters with my gel pen is something I always do, and I think that it helps the letters to pop up. I am also drawing some sketchy lines around the bubbles, and I'll also go around the speech bubbles with a black thin marker. This will help those speech bubbles to stand out more, and it will bind them with the rest of the theme since everything has a black line all around. I just love adding details here and there on my layouts, and at this point I'm using my white gel pen to color some of the squares on the border. I just love how it looks at the end. I'm also getting a lot of questions about my gel pen. I have it linked on my supplies list and I never had any problems with it. And now to add some more details here and there, I'm using my Distress Ink Vintage Photo to stamp a little star on all the speech bubbles just to add some texture. And I'm also going to add more texture with another stamp by doing some second generation stamping. So that's stamping first on another piece of paper and then on the layout. So my impression isn't very vibrant and doesn't stand out. The stamps I'm using now are from another awesome stamp set by Tim Holtz, and it's called BT Grunge, which is backed by images to create great texture on your art journal layouts. And again here I'm going over the background with my cracked pistachio and one of the background images to add some finishing touches. So all that's left to do now is to stamp the date. I had so much fun creating this layout, and I kept having a smile on my face with those birds. So that was the layout for today. I hope you had fun and got inspired. And if you did, don't forget to give me thumbs up on my YouTube channel, as well as leave me a comment. Oh, and don't forget to visit my blog for the giveaways. Thank you all for watching.